Is it worth spending the money to upgrade and customize your pistol? This is my first custom pistol, Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, milled for a red dot. I've got a light and I've got the Apex flat face trigger on it. And the upgrades really do make a big difference. Nice gun. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Today I plan to make a video about functional handgun upgrades. Because if you guys know me and know my channel at all, you know that I'm kind of a tinkerer and I can't leave anything well enough alone. Just about any firearm that I get, I customize, I change parts out, I upgrade it, I make it exactly what I want it to be. Now, none of these guns had given me any problems until today, and I learned a very valuable lesson about changing out Glock triggers and the pitfalls that could possibly come from that. So before we get started, make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical, hit that notification bell, and we're going to talk about what happens when you put a fancy, expensive trigger in your reliable Glock. So this is a Palmetto State Armory Dagger, and this one has also been highly customized and upgraded. As you can see, it's got the threaded titanium nitride coated barrel. We've got a holosun optic on this one as well, also the Streamlight, and a Timney Alpha Glock trigger, which compared to the stock trigger, it really does make a big difference. Dude, really? So there you saw what my problem is. So like I said, this video was supposed to be about functional upgrades to your handguns and, how those upgrades can make it a more effective tool that is customized specifically for your personal uses. Something that I definitely believe in. And so this is my Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, 4¼ inch full size, and it was the first custom handgun that I did. I had the slide milled for a red dot, put a good light on it. I put the Apex flat face trigger in it, and I've never had any problems with this gun whatsoever. Those upgrades made it a much better firearm. But my last build series on the channel was this. This is a Palmetto State Armory Dagger. It's a Gen 3 Glock 19 clone. And I called it my Gucci Glock on a budget build. I've always wanted to build out a Gucci Glock, but I didn't want to spend a fortune on it. And so what I built was a PSA Dagger. Got a $99 frame for it. I got an optics ready slide with a threaded titanium nitride coated barrel. Put the holosun, the Streamlight, all the standard things that I like to do to my handguns, including an upgraded custom trigger. This is the Timney Alpha Glock trigger for Gen 3 and 4 Glocks. Well, you can see what happened there. So I came out here to do a video on how much I like these upgrades, but it seems like this Timney trigger's not working. I can't get it to fire a single round. The M&P with the Apex trigger, on the other hand, not a problem. All good there. And unfortunately, you can also see the flinch. But that is the reality. Of course, it's because I was anticipating recoil. I know that's something that I need to train myself out of, but I've never had a problem with this firearm before. Even after I put this Timney trigger in it, it's been 100% reliable until today. And We're going to go up close and I'm going to show you exactly why I think that is and why it's doing what it's doing. I've done a bunch of research just since getting back from the range, and it looks like there is a fix for this. So if you are thinking about using the Timney Alpha trigger in your Glock build, or if you already have it and you're having problems with light primer strikes, we are going to discuss this. I'll show you what I have found out, but we are also going to talk about, like I said, functional pistol upgrades, because I do believe that there's a time and a place for it, and that things like optics and lights are just about necessary in this day and age. You might as well give yourself every advantage that you can. Also, I am still a big proponent of aftermarket triggers. You just have to do your research, and you have to be prepared for things like this. The scary thing to me is this. Glocks are known for reliability. Now, this isn't a Glock brand pistol, but it is a Glock clone. It's never given me any problems before, so I had been using this as my bedside gun ever since the last time I took it out at the range, and it ran perfectly. It's been sitting on my dresser. Now imagine if someone had broken in, and out of all the guns that I own, this is the one I grab, have to pull the trigger, and I get nothing. That's a scary thought. Let's see if we can get this PSA Dagger to shoot. There is a round in the chamber. I'm having problems. So here we have both of the pistols that were supposed to be talked about in the video today. And as you can see, they both have similar upgrades to them. I believe in lights on any defensive firearm, and I've been very happy with the Streamlight TLR1 HL. I've used it on 3 of my pistols now. I also really like Holosun optics. I think you get a great value for the price. Now, there's nothing wrong with Trijicon RMR. Obviously, it is the gold standard, but for Holosun, you get it for a couple $100 less, and you actually get a lot more features. You get Shake Awake. I like the way the buttons work really well. You get a side-mounted battery tray. You even get a solar fail-safe. So I think they're pretty fantastic optics. And I just really like being able to be target-focused or threat-focused rather than having to line up a front sight, a rear sight, and a target, 3 different focal planes in order to make an effective shot. Now, I do believe that everyone should learn to be effective with iron sights no matter what, because you never know if an electronic piece of equipment will fail on you at some point. But I really do like having optics on my pistols. They're fantastic. Now again, when we talk about triggers, this Apex flat face trigger in my M&P is absolutely amazing. And in fact, let's put the trigger pull gauge on it right now. So let's test out the Apex here, because it makes your gun feel like a single action. It's almost like a 1911 trigger. It's so good. There is some take up. 2.8 pounds. Let's do it one more time there. Oops. I think I pulled it at the wrong spot because it has never given me that number before on this trigger. Yeah, 2.6 pounds there. We'll do it one more time just to make sure. 2.4 pounds. So it's a very light trigger pull. Now you could set it up with different springs and things and make it a little bit heavier. A duty style trigger if you want. But one thing that I have noticed is that even though it's very light, you see the take up there, it's a very smooth take up, and the break is very short and crisp with a very short but audible tactile reset right back to the wall. But even though it's a very light trigger, you can still feel that wall very well, and especially with a lot of dry fire reps, I feel like this trigger is just as safe as any other trigger. It just takes practice to know what you're dealing with there. Now, the Timney Alpha Glock trigger, we are clear here. This is also a very light trigger. Reset the gauge. Go from this side so that extended mag release doesn't get in our way. 2.6 pounds on the Timney Alpha. Do it one more time. 2.6. Pretty consistent. We'll go 3 again just for average sake. 2.4. So this is also a very, very light trigger. But again, I have felt like it is safe because you could definitely feel a solid wall there. It's got a very nice break. The reset is a little bit longer, but it's very audible and tactile. There's that break again. It's just so much better feeling than a standard Glock trigger. But if it doesn't work, then what's the point? So I think I've found out what the problem is. You see the trigger bar there, how there's a line across it? So what I believe is happening, and I believe this because I've done a lot of research since being at the range this morning, and other people have had the same problem with this Timney Alpha trigger. So the really cool thing about the Timney is it basically turns it into a pre-cocked striker or like a single action trigger, because it just doesn't work the same way as a regular Glock trigger. This ends up being your sear. And so what happens is when the slide reciprocates, your striker there gets caught on the sear back here. And so your trigger pull has nothing to do with pulling back your striker and cocking it like it does on a standard Glock trigger. Instead, all it does is it pushes this bar back, and then when it hits your connector there, it goes down, pushes that sear out of the way, letting your striker go forward and igniting your primer, sending around down the barrel. But what looks like is happening there is the striker is dragging on that bar there. So that striker, once it comes, unattached from the sear here, is dragging on dragging on that bar, which seems to be slowing it down enough to not ignite the primers on the rounds. So there are a few fixes that I've seen. It looks like I might have to do some Dremel work on that bar there. I'm going to have to, kind of make a little bit of a channel in it and then smooth it out with some polishing compound, and hopefully we can fix this problem. As long as you leave enough material on that bar so that it's not going to, affect the strength of it or anything else, it shouldn't really affect any other way that it works, because the bar itself shouldn't contact the striker. It should only be the sear contacting it. So I believe if I make a little channel there and polish it, we should be good to go again. But that, unfortunately, is going to be for a future video. So I did bring one other custom pistol out here with me today. Since the Dagger doesn't seem to be doing its job, I do have my new favorite pistol. This is the Springfield Prodigy Double Stack 1911. Now, this one doesn't have anything internal changed on it, but of course it does have the optic and light, kind of making it a custom pistol. Let's see what it does today. No problems with the Prodigy. As you can see from the footage, the M&P continued to run flawlessly, as it always has. This has been my bedside gun for a long time, until I started, well, actually both of them have been recently. It is a scary thought to me, though, to think that I was possibly relying on this gun, because until this morning, it's always been perfectly reliable, even with this Timney trigger in it. But I did learn a lesson here today, that sometimes these upgrades, these modifications, can turn an otherwise reliable gun into something that maybe you can't trust your life to anymore. So make sure that whatever upgrades you do make to your guns, whatever modifications, aftermarket parts, especially internal parts, that they are thoroughly vetted, that you run tons of rounds through them multiple times until you are 100% sure that it's going to run perfectly for you all the time. I thought I was there with this gun. I'd put a lot of rounds through it with this trigger with no problems until today. And I don't know if I do a lot of dry fire practice at home because I want to make sure that I'm presenting correctly, that I'm acquiring my dot quickly, that, like I said, that I know where that wall is when I prep my trigger for a shot. I want to know my firearms inside and out in case I do ever have to use them. And I'm wondering if all that dry fire practice since the last time I actually shot this gun somehow has made that start dragging on that bar there, the striker. I'm not sure, but it went from running perfectly every time to not being able to shoot a single round out of this gun today. What it did give me the opportunity to do, I was out at the range with a lot of different firearms today. I had to film range footage for a bunch of videos because I'll be out of town next week and I still want to bring you guys the content that I regularly put out. So I did have my new favorite pistol out there with me. This is my Springfield Prodigy DS 1911. It's a 2011 style gun, and it has the same upgrades that I put on all my other guns. Holosun optic, Streamlight TLR1HL, but this one has no internal modifications done to it whatsoever at this point. This is still the factory trigger, but it's a 1911, and so that factory single action trigger is fantastic. Now I know a lot of people are doing modifications and upgrades to the internals on these Springfield Prodigies, and I was even thinking about possibly doing the same thing at some point. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I kind of learned a lesson today with this Timney trigger, making a perfectly reliable gun not as reliable. This gun has been very reliable so far. I've had one malfunction with it, and that was today, running some cheap 147 grain, kind of underpowered ammo through it. It seems to really like the 124 grain stuff, but I was running the ammo that I planned to put through this gun in this one today. I did have one stovepipe in it, and it failed to lock back on that same magazine. Now, that is the only issues that this gun has given me since I got it. I've put 400 rounds through it so far, one stovepipe. So, and it's ran hollow points just fine, 115, 124 grain just fine, and even 147 grain, except for that one failure to eject all the way this morning, which I'm going to show you guys on camera because I need to be 100% honest with you guys in case you're thinking about getting any of this kind of stuff. I don't want to promote things that I don't believe in or that aren't 100% reliable. And if they are or they aren't, I'm going to document that. But so far, I am very impressed with this pistol. I guess I'm learning a lesson out here today. I thought I had a perfectly running Gen 3 Glock clone. But apparently this Timney trigger is giving me issues. Luckily, no issues with the M&P. So that's the one we're going to shoot. Almost no issues. And I'll take any excuse I can get to run the Prodigy. So again, the original point of this video was supposed to be functional upgrades for your go-to pistols to make them more effective, more reliable, more ergonomic, you know, lights, optics, triggers, all that. Well, like I said, I did learn a very valuable lesson today. And I think the big takeaway that you can take from this is vet your equipment, vet your upgrades. Make sure that whatever you do, especially if it comes to the fire control group, the striker, any internal modifications that could affect the functionality of your firearm, that you put many, many, many rounds through it until you are 100% sure that it's reliable. Because I learned a lesson about this trigger today, that's for sure. We will have a video in the future. I'm going to see what I could do about fixing this issue, and once I know that it's fixed, I will put out a video documenting that and showing what you can do if you have this Timney Alpha Glock trigger and you're having the same kind of issues. Because I don't really want to go back to a standard Glock trigger at this point. This trigger is a lot better. It feels much better. It's lighter. It's got less take-up. It's got less pre-travel, post-travel. It's got a much crisper break. It's a overall way better trigger, and it makes it easier to shoot the gun fast and accurate, which is what we all want. But you can't have all that at the detriment of being reliability. That just doesn't do you any good if your gun's not going to run. So I'm going to do what I can to make sure that I get this trigger and this firearm working perfectly again. Lord knows, and you've seen it if you follow my channel, that I have had reliability issues with other guns in the past, and I've always found a way to fix those issues and make those guns perfectly reliable again. And I'm sure the same thing will happen with this. It's just a little bump in the road. The only problem with something like that is even after you fix an issue, it's hard to trust that gun again until you've put a lot of rounds through it, and then you can finally know that it's 100% reliable again. But when you've had things like this happen, like, it's going to be really hard for me to have this gun on my bedside nightstand and think that I could use it in a defensive situation at this point. Luckily, I have other firearms I can use. My freaking tried and true M&P has never given me any problems. But that is just one of those downfalls of having reliability issues. Even if you are able to fix them, you're always going to have that in your head. What if it doesn't work this time? Let's try this dagger one more time here. Nothing. But I gotta say, the upgrades to the M&P make it a much more shootable pistol. Springfield Prodigy with all my favorite upgrades. Oh, first malfunction in the Prodigy. .147 grain, failed to lock back. So don't get me wrong, I still do believe in upgrades, modifications, customization to your go-to firearms. Again, just make sure you vet those mods. Now, things like red dots, lights, I don't think you have to worry about that kind of stuff, as long as they are from reputable companies, but still vet them. That stuff isn't going to affect, generally, the way your firearm actually functions. When it comes to things like triggers, any other internal modifications, make sure you run a lot of rounds so that you're confident that your firearm is going to work. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. Tell me if you have any experience with this Timney Alpha Glock trigger, or with the Apex Tactical flat face trigger for the M&P, and what your experience has been. Have you had any reliability issues, or has it been all good? And if you have had issues like this, tell me and everyone else what your fix for it was, and maybe we can help each other all out. From Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.